Rock Talk.
This is a coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. We're located at 8 North Main in Concord, New Hampshire. This is a repository for all things conservative and municipal. So if you have a problem in your town, your school, your budget committee, the right to know law, and now the top of our list is voter fraud. You have a tip for us, some information for us, you want to join or help us out, cnht.org.
Welcome back. For our audio live stream listeners, if you weren't listening on Spreaker, you may now listen on the Grok homepage because the spell checker in the blog editor hung it up. So it wasn't flawless execution. Anyway, we want to continue the discussion.
But we're not Rush Limbaugh.
We're not Rush Limbaugh. We don't have... Well, see, here's the problem. If we had an engineer, if we had a social media person, if we had a transcriber, things would probably go a lot better. But we don't.
Could you imagine actually having someone go and like sit through hours and hours of just rambling and just transcribing it all?
Well, if it pays well, sure.
Yeah, I guess when you're making the kind of money for each program that he does, you can afford to have it transcribed in real time.
You instantaneously have content for online. You just pull stuff and throw it up. You know,
absolutely.
It's awesome.
Great stuff.
I've been impressed by how fast every day it's getting faster and faster that the Limbaugh stuff appears online after each program. It used to be, late on in the afternoon, early evening, you'd start to see stuff. Now, virtually all the content's available within an hour or so after the program. It's incredible.
And that's no longer remarkable. But Congress passing a budget.
Congress passing a budget is
remarkable.
I know. I mean, we sit around and we say to ourselves, wait, geez, Congress passed a budget. That's kind of what you expect Congress to do, right? That's what they're supposed to do. I mean, in the legislature, they pass budgets, and in Congress, we expect the same. But we actually have a first budget through. It was passed in the House last week, but passed in the Senate this week. So we actually have a budget framework. It doesn't do a lot of the things that I think a lot of us had hoped for. We'd like to see some entitlement reform, which is obviously that's the fundamental long-term problem. Is a lot of the entitlements we have here, and this budget does not have that. But it does do something remarkable, something that's truly remarkable, something that no budget that President Obama has ever proposed has done. It actually balances. Wow. I know it sounds crazy. Congress, if this budget goes, now keep in mind they have this strange concept in Washington. Even though they pass a budget every year, when they budget out 10 years. Now I don't know about you, but I don't know how anyone can think they know what the economy is going to be like 10 years from now and how it's going to grow up and down.
I sure don't. I just don't do a very good job of preparing for the worst, and I hope for the best, and somehow we muddle through.
Exactly.
And Congress does rather worse than that because they make assumptions that they can cut spending 8, 9, and 10 years out to balance what they're overspending this year. A burger today for pay you on Tuesday, it never works.
Right. I mean, that's not to say the budget balances anytime in the near future. It's going to take about 9 years before it balances based upon this budget, but at least it's actually having an aspirational goal of getting to the idea where we actually will balance the budget.
And I think that's plain wrong to begin with, that they're allowed to budget that far out. There's one thing in planning, long-term projects, long-term spending, in which there's going to be some, but it's a completely different thing to say, as long as we aspire to balance the budget over a 10-year period, that's okay, because then the next bunch will come in and they'll redo the budget,
right,
and it'll either not balance at all or it'll balance 10 years out from them.
But at least if you're putting a glide plane in to get there, you're coming to the conclusion that you're actually going to have to start making some cuts, or at the very least not increase the way that we've been increasing in the past. I think that one of the things that frustrates a lot of folks is when we hear, as Steve said, having a budget that actually goes up quite a bit, and people are coming before the State House because the State Senate had their public hearing on their budget on Tuesday of this week, and there were hundreds of people who came in and said what they always say, which is "Don't cut my program, don't cut my program." It's like the opposite of tax not thee, tax not me, tax that fellow behind the tree. It's just the opposite. It was funny because, as you know, I worked in the New Hampshire House, and when we actually had to pass our budget, it actually did cut. It actually cut 11% of spending, and it would be amazing. Each individual group who would get the services would come in and they'd say, "Look, I understand you have a tough job. I understand, but why are you singling out our group? Why us?" And it's just a remarkable how they would say, "Oh, listen, just take care of us, and that's okay." And as if every other group wasn't saying exactly the same thing. But we saw that with hundreds of people making those comments in Concord, and I think that it's par for the course that a lot of these groups are going to come in and ask for more money, and they bring a lot of the people who can give a personal story about how they would be affected by it.
Well, and that's the way special interests work, and it's the way Democrats work. They always bring along the victim with the sob story to justify it more of your money.
I understand, but the thing is several of the senators asked, "Well, how do you want to pay for it?" And they said, "Well, I don't know. That's your problem to worry about." In other words, don't ask me what taxes we should raise. And I think that's really a phenomenon of people who've never actually sat through a budget process. I've been now through 7 budgets. None of them have been uncomplicated. They're always complicated, but I think that right out of the gate, one of the smart things that leadership in the House and the Senate said is, now they had a little deviation for a while talking about the gas tax, but by and large they came out and they said, look, we are not going to raise taxes and fees. Bottom line is we're not raising taxes and fees, and we're going to have to put a budget together. And I think that instantaneously, right out of that, there was a lot of pushback, and that pushback came from a lot of the institutional left, but a lot of other organizations and special interests that subsist on taxpayer dollars, and I think there's an acknowledgement that they're going to have to be some tweaks and reductions in government across the line. You can't just continue to keep doing what you're doing. I do think, though, we often talk about it, but it never actually happens. They call it zero-based budgeting, but I don't even want to talk about it as zero-based budgeting. I like to say -1 budgeting, where you say, let's start with the idea that every program got -$1, $1 less than you got last year, and start and uses that as a baseline. Or better yet, even better than that is, ask the question, how many programs do we even need to have around? Why do we need a state greenhouse? I mean, why does the state government need to have a greenhouse? These are the types of questions that a lot of people should be asking.
Somewhere to throw stones in, as people with glass houses.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. That's a good point. So,
all right.
But I think that for people paying attention to the state budget process, now's a good time to actually talk to your senator, particularly talk to your senator, not talk to the Senate, not do a blast email to all 24 senators. But for conservatives to say, first of all, to tell folks, listen, I fully endorse the idea of not raising taxes and fees, and I understand that there's going to have to be some reductions because they're hearing about it from all the people who are tied in with the specialists. I think it's important for them to hear from just average, everyday New Hampshire citizens who are sick and tired of paying higher and higher taxes in their lives to say, look, let's just try to make a common sense, fiscally responsible budget that doesn't raise taxes. In fact, we need to be looking at ways where we can actually start making some reductions in our business taxes that are the 3rd highest in the country, and maybe even some tax reform on businesses, so that it makes more sense to encourage more businesses to come to New Hampshire. We've got some of the highest energy rates. We've got some of the highest healthcare rates, some of the highest taxes, some of the highest unemployment fees, unemployment insurance taxes. Businesses are struggling, and they're not coming to New Hampshire. I think that one of the first things that we can use to point to that is actual business tax revenue is down between this year and last year. Now, if business taxes are a proxy on the health of the economy, which I think they are, because if businesses are doing well, that means that the economy as a whole is doing well. And business taxes are actually down this fiscal year from last fiscal year, 10 months into the year, which is a sign that we're having businesses that are struggling. And
the tax rate is too damn high.
Yeah,
because,
and
when revenue is down, it's because the taxes are too high.
Absolutely, and business enterprise tax, which is even more concerning, which is actually a payroll tax. So if your business enterprise taxes are down, but your employment is going up, at least according to the Department of Employment Security, if your overall payrolls are going down and your employment's going up, that means that wages are dropping. And it's really not a good sign, because it means that either high wage earners, now maybe some of the high wage earners at the end of their career are retiring, and the new people coming in are getting paid at a lower wage. But it's not a good sign for our economy to see our BET tax dropping year over year at a time when people say that employment is increasing. It means that we're not taking as much money home,
or that people are leaving or being downsized out of high-paid jobs,
Yep.
and they're picking up burger flipping jobs
Yep.
because it's all they can get. And part-time jobs because it's all they can get, because it's all the employers dare provide under Obamacare.
And that's another great point, the impacts to the economy of Obamacare. But ultimately, it says, look, at the state level, we need to do something. We can't just sit here and do like Governor Hassan said, which is just keep raising business taxes, which has made no sense whatsoever. But we need to actually go in the other direction and start giving our businesses a helping hand to try to give them some competitive advantage and a reason not to move to Massachusetts, which, by the way, has lower business taxes than New Hampshire. Or, worse yet, go to a place like North Carolina, which made substantial business tax reductions last year, and this year is seeing a record surplus as a result of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Democrats always think that that the money grows on trees, or that the golden goose will keep on laying even if you don't feed it. And they just don't understand that you have to encourage business. You have to make it worthwhile to do business here in order to be able to get taxes
our
from
economy's
business.
too mobile, Mike. Our economy's too mobile. It's too easy to pick up, put all your stuff in a van. I mean, it's not like the days where it was all manufacturing, where you had too much of a sunk cost, so you're not going to up and move.
No, everything's mobile. I mean, I work in California. Well, not really. I work in my house, but I work for a California company.
Exactly.
You know, I can be wherever I need to be. And
that California company could move to Nevada, could move to Arizona, could move to North Carolina, wherever it's better.
or to Texas. Mm-hmm. And the only reason it doesn't move to Texas is because even the Texan on staff prefers living in California. But Jerry Brown keeps trying to make it difficult for them to stay.
Right. So, I mean, we can't be like that. They say that just the number of jobs that have gone from California to Texas over the last 10 years exceeds the job creation in something like 42 other states, which is a staggering figure.
All right, we're going to take a really short break, and then we will be right back with Brent Gardner, the VP for Government Affairs with Americans for Prosperity, and we'll be right back. Stay tuned.